Hi, this is Erick Becker from Cummins White, and this is the next video in our series on new employment laws for 2021 in California. This video will focus on the new requirements under AB 685 for giving notice to employees regarding a COVID infection and taking steps to give notice not only to the County Public Health Department, but also in some circumstances to Cal OSHA. We have a number of videos on these new employment laws, including an overview video and also a video on the CFRA expansion and crime victims leave rights, which are all available on our website. And at the end of this video, I'll give you more information on how you can access those other videos. But for now, let's focus on these new COVID-19 notice requirements under California law. Under AB 685, effective January 1st, employers must give written notice to all employees at a work site if there was a COVID positive individual who was either visiting or working at the work site. Now, this is really an expansion of the requirements that are currently in effect under the Cal OSHA emergency regulations. The difference is the emergency regulations under Cal OSHA only require verbal notice to employees. But now under AB 685, as of January 1st, there must be written notice to all employees if you do have somebody at the work site who you find out either was infected through a positive test or they're quarantined by their doctor or a public health official. Now, this written notice can be electronic. It does not have to be a piece of paper. It can be by email or text, whichever way you regularly communicate with employees. Your notice should also be translated to the language understood by a majority of employees. So if your workforce is made up of a majority of Spanish-speaking employees, for instance, you should translate your notice into Spanish. Your requirement to give notice is that it happen at least one business day, if not shorter, from when you have knowledge of the exposure at the workplace. In other words, when you first learn, for instance, that an employee was COVID positive because they either contact you or send you the test results, you've got one business day to give your written notice to the employees. That would exclude, of course, holidays and weekends if you don't regularly operate on the weekends. Now, as probably most people are aware, when you're talking about notice to employees regarding a COVID infected individual, privacy laws prohibit you from naming or identifying information about the individual that has COVID. So you do not want to put anything in the notice that identifies, oh, Joe or Mary were positive for COVID-19. Your notice must include a couple of key elements. Number one, you have to give employees information on any sick pay that may be available if they're unable to work due to COVID exposure or COVID infection. You have to give them information on the availability of workers' compensation benefits if they become sick and they need medical care or they're unable to work, or other available benefits that the employer provides for COVID positive employees. Your notice must also state that the employer does not retaliate or discriminate against any employee who is either COVID positive or may have been exposed to COVID, or that raises any issues regarding COVID-19 safety in the workplace. You also need to share in your written notice what disinfection and safety plans you have implemented to deal with the exposure at the workplace. So you have to go into detail about the areas of the work site that are being cleaned, what steps may be taken to prevent further exposures, etc. So your notice has to have more than just a few sentences that someone has been infected with COVID at the workplace. Next, if you have an outbreak at the workplace, which is defined as 3 or more infected employees within a 14-day period working at the work site, you have to give notice to the county public health agency. And that notice has to be given within 48 hours of knowledge that you've hit that mark of 3 or more infected employees. And again, this is not necessarily 3 employees at the same time. This can be 3 employees notifying you that they've been infected over a 14-day period. So the employer has to give notice to that public health agency once you learn that you've hit that outbreak marker, and you need to provide them information, including the names, the contact information, the occupation, work site, and number of infected employees. So that information you can and must provide to the county public health agency so they can do contact tracing if they choose. You also have to report whether or not you've had any employees hospitalized or having died due to COVID exposure. And you must provide your business address and NAICS code to the county health agency. Now, there's some additional requirements under the Cal OSHA standards. You also, when you have an outbreak, need to make sure that you exclude employees infected and exposed by close contact with the infected individuals. And in an outbreak situation, you must provide free testing for all worksite employees each week during the outbreak. So there's a number of different additional items that you need to be aware of if you do have COVID exposure or a COVID outbreak under the Cal OSHA standards. Lastly, the new law states that if there's an imminent hazard of COVID infection, Cal OSHA may come in and determine that your workplace poses an imminent hazard to employees. And that triggers a couple of different things. Number one, this may not be the entire workplace, but it may be limited to a particular area or operation. For instance, if in part of your workplace you have employees working very, very closely to each other, but other parts of the workplace you have significant social distancing, Cal OSHA may determine that the imminent hazard only exists in that small portion of the workplace. And why is that important? Because if they determine there's an imminent hazard, they may order the work site or just that particular area closed. This is called an order prohibiting use, or an OPU, until the hazard abates. So Cal OSHA may come in, and because of a complaint or because of an outbreak, they get notified. They can come in and order closure of that particular work site or area. They can also issue a citation for a serious violation related to COVID exposure. And they can do that without giving 15 days notice. Under this new law, Cal OSHA used to have to give 15 days notice of a potential serious violation before they issued the citation. Now they can issue that citation simultaneously with determining that there's an imminent hazard to employees. Now, you do not need to notify Cal OSHA of any exposure necessarily, or even an outbreak. You do need to notify Cal OSHA, however, within 24 hours if you have an employee hospitalized or an employee dies because of COVID exposure. So it's really, really important for employers to make sure that you're doing everything possible to comply with all the requirements under the Cal OSHA standards, under the state guidelines issued by the public health department. All of those things like social distancing, wearing a mask, having proper disinfection, etc. The more you do that, the more you can demonstrate to Cal OSHA that there's not an imminent hazard and there should not be either OPU or a citation for a serious violation. It's also important to keep good documentation of all the steps that you are taking to comply with all the COVID safety requirements. So that is some of the details regarding the new COVID-19 notice requirements going into effect on January 1st. If you have any questions regarding COVID-19 notice or the Cal OSHA standards, feel free to reach out to me. My email address and my phone number are at the bottom of this slide. And as mentioned previously, we have videos on the other new California laws that are important for employers in 2021, including the expansion of California Family Rights Act rights and the expansion of crime victims' leave rights. Feel free to go to our website. We also have an overview of all of these new laws on video. At the very top of the website, there's a menu bar. Right next to where it says articles, you'll see a link for videos. And then when you get to the video page, scroll down to labor and employment videos, and you will see the entire series. Thanks for stopping by. My name is Erick Becker from Cummins White.